All right, here we go. All right, today we have a special show, Vanguard show. Welcome back, guys. Episode 5, In Your Face. In Your Face. That's what we're going to have in your face moments. We're here with EJ. We can't really say his name today. EJ is a federal officer, and that's as much as we're going to say. And we're going to talk about a lot of important things that are going on, you know? And we're going to try and debunk some myths, okay? Because people talk. And it pisses me off when people talk without real research and information,
Sure.
as if they know what they're talking about, and they don't. You do. No man is an island, but you've gone through a lot of stuff, and it's really important that we get to the bottom of a lot of things. And you know, you're a friend of mine. We've known each other for some time. I know things about you from speaking to you. And I know things about you from hearing things as well. I know that there's going to be some times where I may ask some things that you can't answer, and that's okay. You just say, you know, I can't say right now. And listen, our country is the most important thing. And, you know, we don't want to give up or say anything that is going to
put us in a predicament.
Yeah,
Okay.
the security of our country
Exactly.
in any sort of thing. But listen, this is the Vanguard show. We didn't call this the MMA Vanguard or anything like that for a reason. Yes, we're MMA guys. That's where we started. But it's really important to us that we talk about things that are out there. And today we're gonna talk to you. We're calling you by the name of EJ. Welcome, EJ.
Thank
we
you.
got
Thank you, guys.
Nas here. Say hello, Nas.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Should we put up some pictures of Nas just in case?
think that would be
He feels a
appropriate. I think
little.
that would be appropriate.
He feels a little overdressed here or something.
He's got the size medium working for him. I like that. I like it. I like that.
Extra schmedium.
Extra medium.
EJ, listen. This is where I want to start off. Okay.
So, let's shoot.
And this is major because a lot of people don't know this. You know, you have prevented I don't know the exact number, attacks on this country, personally. You know, we're not going to get into detail. If you want to, go right ahead. But how many exactly have you prevented attacks on this country from terrorism?
I could say just under 2 handfuls. So yeah, about 7 or 8 that I can actually say are on report, and more that are unofficial.
Unofficial.
Sure.
Right. And that's a scary number because these things we don't even know about. It wasn't on CNN. It wasn't on NBC, Fox News. These are things that happen. Other than you, there are other agents that have done the same thing.
Absolutely.
You know, so
Thousands.
so then there are thousands of numbers out there that we don't know about, that we've never heard about. And everybody out there, listen, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. So, you know, fair game to all right? And good points to all right? But this is a liberal, an ideology that we're making this up. People are making this up. It's fake. It's not real. It's like something that, you know, people are trying to divide the country, so they're making this stuff up to make us scared. And tell us, is that...
You know, it's interesting you say that because I have family that absolutely know nothing about what I do, and I have one person that knows everything that I do. And if I were ever to pass anything on to the population, and to let you know a little bit about myself, I started out as a diehard liberal. You know, I was a kid from the Bronx, and that's the way I grew up. I grew up in the hard parts, and life happened, and a few turns and Y's in the road, and I ended up here. Along that road, I learned a whole lot of things about life. I learned that not everybody, black, red, white, or brown, first of all, is good or bad.
Right.
There's 10% of every microcosm of every population.
Right.
Let's call it a spade. They're assholes.
Yes.
10%
Everywhere.
10% of cops are assholes.
Yes.
10% of thugs are really assholes.
Yeah. Bigger assholes.
Bigger assholes. So everybody makes mistakes and everybody does things possibly inadvertently. Now, the issues that I had with terrorism and terrorists, I have to keep general. However, these situations happened on the ground, in the air, on ferries, on airplanes. They're all over the place. I can give you one, for instance, several years ago, and I won't give you the exact year, but it was on a Christmas day. On a Christmas day, I was traveling on a public conveyance, and there were 3 individuals that were looking really, really weird. And there was one security guard on the train, apparently going to his job or his gig. And the 3 individuals got really, really uncomfortable when that security guard got on the train. So they didn't know whether or not he was a police officer or not. They had no idea who he was or what his uniform stood for. But his uniform stood for something. It stood for authority. It stood for the authorities of the United States. Right. They did fit the bill. I've been deployed. I've been overseas. I've been in combat deployments. They fit the bill. Right. So I called for some help, and I pulled these guys and separated them and spoke with them. Each of them had $3,330 on their body, exactly to the penny. Wow. Minus one who had about $19 missing. So if you know anything about traveling, you know anything about coming into the country and leaving the country, anything over $10,000 needs to be legally reported and declared. Right.
Is there any significance to 333?
It adds up to $9,999.
Oh, so they split it up. Okay, that's
which is not the most ignorant thing to do. It's fairly educated, fairly intelligent. Right. However, if you're pulled together and you're lumped together as, let's say, 3 Pakistanis. Okay. You all have the same story of origin. Right. Let's say you started out in Canton, Ohio. Right. All of you. But all 3 stories are different of how you got here today. But you all traveled together. Right. Okay. Now further investigation goes back to reveal that all 3 of them came into possession of a restaurant in a certain state where the owner of the restaurant ended up murdered. No connection to these 3. However, they are running this restaurant, making funds, making money, and traveling around the country. They've only been in the country a short time. However, on this day, on this public conveyance, when I questioned them all myself, one at a time. What is your purpose here, visiting? To visit the Liberty statue. I says, okay, when did you come up with this plan, and when did your friends come up with this plan to do that? Well, all 3 stories were different. So it doesn't take an FBI analyst to understand that all 3 of them are lying about the entire story, why they're there that day on Christmas, and why they're going to either scope out the Statue of Liberty and then drive back, walk back to the train station and take a train back. All 3 stories were different. So from origin to destination, not one of them could put one fact of even how they knew each other. So, I thought I was a rocket scientist. I hit the gold pot. But it really didn't take much but a keen eye to watch that these guys were starting to sweat their butts off when the security guard got on the train. And that's the only thing to keep me off that day. Now, a lot of situations happen when in brownstones in the middle of Park Slope, Brooklyn, in Queens, in nice areas, Fresh Meadows, doors get kicked in all the time. And sometimes you find people with maps and tuna cans. And they're not looking to just board and make a great life for themselves, because all of them have either K-1 visas or visas for engineering and technology, and they're not living the life of an engineering student or technology. Some of them just skip out on school altogether. So that was one incident that I had. Another was on an actual airplane where I was just traveling and I saw someone with a laptop. It was nighttime, it was dark, and the laptop was canted toward the wall, toward the bulkhead. But you could see the reflection from where I was sitting through the window. Dark outside, reflection through the window. All I saw were pictures of bombs, car bombs, destroyed children, burned bodies, and a caption underneath with some Arabic writing that was translated to Lebanese Jihad Relief Association of some sort. That didn't take another FBI clue. These are just things that were happening across day to day if you're trained to watch, which is very important to pass out as well. If you see something weird like that and you don't feel comfortable about it, you're not a racist. You know, in this day and age when we're so worried about what people are going to think about what we're thinking and how we're saying it and who we say it to, and we're afraid to be labeled a racist. Right. I'm a Puerto Rican kid from the South Bronx. If I see something that's going to implode me at 600 miles an hour, I want to report that to the pilot. I want to make sure that we have information for the public that they know exactly what they're looking for. And that's what's important. Educate them. If you don't educate the public and educate your listeners, what the most important thing is, pass on that. Don't worry about how you seem or how you appear or how you come across. Liberal politics, conservative politics, it all ends up to put pieces together. For the FBI, it puts pieces together. For law enforcement, it puts pieces together. There's billions of dollars spent annually by large law enforcement agencies like NYPD in Los Angeles that dedicate to criminal terrorism and units dedicated to anti-terrorism. But it happens all the time. And to go back to your question, there's just too many to just, it's not.
So let's get into the restaurant owner that was murdered. Was he murdered by them?
I can't say.
Okay. And what was their plan?
Well, their mission was apparently to scout the Statue of Liberty. And it's not very hard to do. You come in, you get a camera, you're automatically a tourist.
Right.
You know, if it wasn't for the fact that the security guard on the train came on, it wouldn't have been really that noticeable. But it was noticeable if you're looking. If you're just staring at your cell phone, it's the problem that we have today with everybody. This is what everybody does on trains. A dancing bear can, and a study's been shown that a guy in a bear uniform could do the moonwalk through a train station and half the people on a train won't see it. So that's what the problem is, if we're not paying attention.
Right.
And that's where we're going to get hurt. It's not by exterior forces or interior, abuses of rights. I just really think it's going to be that one lucky day that one bad guy takes that pressure cooker filled with radiation and lets it go in a
See, to me, it almost feels like the left is saying it's not there, and the right is saying it's everyone. It's almost, it seems like it's purposely done. Can they be that foolish? Why can't we find a nice medium of patriotism and, debunk these myths that people create in their heads because they're so worried about political correctness?
Well, I think it all goes back to 1787. The Constitution was ratified, and in 1776 we declared our independence. And what we did was we told the whole world that we're not going to be treated this way by a tyrant. We're not going to be taxed without representation. We're not going to have our freedoms taken away from us. We're going to have to be attainder or held accountable for crimes that are supposedly in England illegal, where in Boston and the colonies they weren't. So we got from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution. How we read that Constitution now doesn't exactly correlate to what the life was back then. So if you're saying, how do we reach that happy medium? We have to go back to the very basics. And now that the Supreme Court's going to start their session in October, from October to June, the Supreme Court's going to start taking writs of certiorari, which are requests for seeing law cases and freedom and expression. Do we have the freedom to yell fire in a public theater? Does the government overuse the word terror and fear? I don't think so, because if we don't use it enough, then we're just going to be saying the government didn't do enough. What was the government doing that they fell asleep that this happened? And you see it all the time. You jab once, you get a punch back on the other side.
But who listens to the government? Everyone gets their news from whatever news station they want to follow. So if you're listening to MSNBC, obviously fully liberal. If you're listening to Fox, obviously fully right. If you're listening to CNN, there is an overtone of liberalism, but they try to keep it in the middle somewhat. But there is a big liberal, what would you say?
They're trying to paint it.
They're painting it with a liberal brush, but at the same time, they do keep it in the middle. And I prefer to watch CNN because of that. But I like to get my news also from YouTube, and I like to decide for myself because knowing both sides and having been both sides is why I chose being independent, is because when you believe one side, you really start to look for that personal truth. But when you finally just break out, you start to see the lies from both sides. you know. And here's a fact, okay? There's two parties that run this country. And no matter who we get the same thing. The people who are liberals think it's one way, but their politicians are the same exact. I can't tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat once they're in office, you know? They say certain things, but they do the same thing. It seems like we're not really voting. What we're doing is we're being appeased. As in, oh, there goes this guy that I wanted. While he's telling me blah, 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 he's really doing what they want to do, you know? And that's where I feel like I'm at right now.
That's the double-edged sword that we have with the republic. We are a republic. We are run by a democratic system. And we got away from a tyrannical system that told us who you're going to be, what you're going to think, and what party you're going to be a part of. And if you're not a part of that party, then you're crucified. So here we have freedom, and we have preferred freedoms. We have two parties that offer different outlooks on the Constitution. Liberals are more active, judicially active, and conservatives are more practice judicial restraint. So I don't know if you can just call yourself a total Republican. I think that you may have some Republican affiliations, and you might also have some judicially active frameworks. Because in the judicial system, now that we're getting to that Supreme Court that we were talking about earlier, they read the Constitution much more liberally. They're all about preferred freedoms. The burden is on the legislature and Congress to prove that that law is just. Whereas if you're a judicial restraint practice, if you believe in judicial restraint, now the law system says it's on the individual to prove the government's wrong. We have those two different parties. What's a Republican? What's a Democrat? Who are we to say? But I believe in a certain amount of things. I do believe that a woman has a right to choose. But I don't believe in second trimester abortions. I do believe that that government should be strong and central. But I don't believe that government should be in everybody's social and cultural business. And we're turning, we're turning apples into oranges when you say, I don't know if a Republican is actually speaking Republican speak, or if a Democrat is teaching Democratic speak, or preaching any type of speak. But you have to find your happy medium. It's not always going to be. I can't paint myself and say, "Hey, T, you're a conservative, and you're a liberal, and I'm a conservative." And that's the way we can't be friends. We're the best of friends. I'd lay down my life for you, but apparently there's different outlooks on life. And
I like to think that being an American is, I choose one thing for myself, but I don't tell you what to do. What would I choose? I would keep the child. That's my choice, and I believe in it. And it could be a conservative frame of thought that I believe that. But if someone got an abortion, I would not deem them my enemy. Do you get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's how I'd like to look at it. They'd still be my friend, for whatever reason, Of course, I would have tried to help them, see what we can do to, for that person to keep the child. But you don't know what's going on in a person's life, you know? I'm against abortion, but I'm not against free will,
Well, we have the right to be against it. But the
law, no, I'm going to get into that.
But the law is the law.
Yeah,
so we can have our feelings about that law.
Right. I mean, I think even doctors should say to themselves, you know what? I don't want to do this. Do you know what I mean? This is not something I want to do. I don't support this, so I'm not going to do it. Even if it's illegal, I'm not going to do it. So if the doctor that does it and the person that decides, that's up to them to deal with the repercussions of it, whether it be spiritual or even sometimes. I know a lot of people who've gotten abortions and they hate themselves afterwards. It was the only thing they thought was the right thing to do, and then they wish they had never done it. And when I see someone on the world stage, screaming things like, "You can't tell me what to do with my." Oh, shut the fuck up, all right? I'm not. Nobody's really trying to tell you. They're just saying that maybe it's not going to be the best decision, even though you made it and you had the right to make it. Maybe it's not the best decision.
Yeah.
Morally speaking, I'm not even talking spiritually. Because I think the Constitution and the Bible, they all they're up to interpretation.
Absolutely.
How do you want to see it?
Absolutely, and I'm not blind to that either. In the Constitution, it talks about bound servants. In the Constitution, it talks about slaves, in other words, and taxing slaves. And it does. And the reason behind that is because the Constitution was written keenly, and it was written smartly to get the South to sign off and help ratify it. But if they didn't put that wording in there, and if you notice, in Article 4, 1806 is the date that, up until that date, it was pretty much okay. And that's the culture of the time, and who are we to judge now? Now we know it's a distasteful, disgusting, even the thought of it makes me want to barf in my mouth right now. But back then, it's the same as walking out to Starbucks right now, getting a coffee. In 100 years, if Starbucks' coffee was as distasteful as slavery was back then, so be it in 100 years. Right now, it's the status quo. So we're living this date, judging 100, 200 years ago. Now we're ripping down statues that are moments and monuments of our written, documented history, good or bad. And I think it's the negative side of history, but it tells a story. And when you erase that history, now we're getting to the Orwellian aspect of where are we and who are we, and did that Constitution mean absolutely
It's sort of
anything?
like ISIS tearing down, when they were in Iraq, they were tearing down all these old Sumerian artifacts, and whether you agreed with Sumeria or not, who even remembers what Sumeria was? Do you know what I mean? Those were things that were created. Whether you agreed with the Egyptians enslaving the Jews, there was some great art that was made at that time, right? Tombs. We're not destroying them. So I get it. At the same time, it's too close to us, and people are defining that time as the time of slavery, bigotry, and hate. Yes, but it was also part of the country that had a constitution that allowed us to get away from that, evolve, and become better. And you know what? If we as Americans become like a Roman society and we don't exist one day, maybe something else comes along, we want to look back, right, and see the good and the bad, right? The people, what they believed in, why they believed in it. And yes, it is history. You're not advocating what was going on at the time. Because I'll tell you what about the great people who died for anti-slavery? You're forgetting about them too. There's a yin and a yang, and without the yin and the yang, you can't have the whole picture. So if you get rid of which one is the dark side?
Robert E. Lee.
The yin is the... No, I'm saying the yin is the dark side.
I don't know, but I got a cool T-shirt with it. So you tell me.
If you get rid of the dark side, then you forget about the light side.
Yang has to be the dark side. It would be the light.
Because it sounds like
Yin.
yin would be first. You're saying.
No, because yin is.
Come closer to the mic.
When they have the circle, and it's always white on the left and black on the right. So I figure it would be yin, the white one, and yang is the black one.
Yeah, whatever. If you get rid of the black, you forget about the white. There were some great people, who stood up for that injustice and made a great decision. And these are the sort of things that boggles my mind, that us in this modern day, that people can't get together and say this. Of course, I'm against what the South stood for at that time, But I also understand America as a whole. I can step back and step out of my own, satisfactions, and they're momentary satisfactions. Of course, you could say, I'm against slavery, but are you against the rise of America, the evolution of America, the history? And which brings me to what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you this too. This is a big thing, and especially the Second Amendment. And you know, everyone keeps talking about Second Amendment meaning one thing or the other. From there, I also want to get your opinion on not just the Second Amendment, but people justifying their horrible behavior by saying that our forefathers were slave owners. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, absolutely.
And it seems like these guys, these forefathers of ours, they knew better. But they also understood that they could not do a civil war amongst their own people while they were in a civil war against the country that they came from and fight against slavery, but they knew it was wrong. So they created a constitution that had a way out, had a way to embetter itself, you know. And sometimes people want that simple gratification, that quick, oh, let's kill them. No, that's not how diplomacy works. That's not how we grow as human beings. Think about yourself 10 years ago. Were you the same person you are today? Why do we want this instant gratification, you know, and cut things out? You know what? Every side has something good to get from it, even the wrong side. Go ahead, your opinion.
Counterpoint.
Go.
Millennials.
Ah!
And we have a good representative right there. It's a good that's a positive representative. Let's not pick on millennials. Let's just pick on folks that are 35 or less. Okay? Let's include a little bit of the next generation. But when you're thinking about the next generation, do you consider that most of the people that are judging today's racial tensions, they're judging it from a point where it started just last year when this president took office. 8 years ago, there were racial tensions, but it wasn't as punch in your mouth and face. In my opinion, there's always going to be bias and racism. I personally don't even like the word retarded, and I hate saying that word, but I tell people when you say it, there are people, 1/3 of this population knows somebody or related to somebody that has a mental disability or an illness. And I personally have that in my family. I just don't think that certain words, though they're protected by the Constitution we speak about, which in the Constitution it says it's created to achieve a more perfect union. But there's no way, shape, or form are we to be fooled and think that the Constitution states that this is a perfect republic.
Right. It's not. But it has the ability to grow and keep evolving.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's going to go backwards.
Living, breathing document.
Right.
It's constantly being changed and judged by peers that we elect into the courts, into the executive and the legislative branch. That's the politics of it. That's the Republican of it. You're never going to make the black all happy, the white all happy. And I'm referring to the yin and the yang. You're not going to make one side totally happy with the other. The Republicans aren't always going to be happy with the Democrats. But there's that politics part, which is called compromise. And that's where the compromise comes in. And when folks on the right see that the president is working with folks on the left, hey, I like that. I like that a president is going to walk across the aisle and say, hey, listen, if you guys aren't going to get it done for the greater good, which is why September 17th, 1787, it was ratified. That's the Constitution. That's why the Democrats are being worked with the president. And they're working along with the president. 4 months ago, you would have been hard-pressed to find Pelosi or Schumer shaking hands and patting the president on the back. And that's why we can't say that a Republican is a Republican, a Democrat is a Democrat, a conservative is a conservative, and a liberal is a liberal. Because we're all going to get along at one point.
And I think Bill Maher said it last week or something. He said, I'll tell you why Trump is getting along with Pelosi and the Democrats. It's because they're just like him. He may say things to the middle America to identify with them or maybe get a rise out of them, which he just did the other day. But at the same time, he's a New Yorker. And he's been around people like Pelosi, Schumer, all that stuff. And he identifies with them. He knows how to work with those type of people.
Absolutely.
People from the city rather than the country folk. Even though the country folk are the ones that got him elected, no city got him elected. I think he lost pretty much every city out there. But my point here being is that he is them. He may have run on a Republican ticket because his ideas go that way. But you know what? There's some things that I agree with him about. I just don't like his way. How he does things, how he says things. You know, I'd like to say that he has some good ideas, but then when I hear the filth and the crap that comes out of his mouth, I'm almost ashamed, you know, of him. And it's like hard to support some things that he does when he goes about it in such a ridiculous way.
I'm sure he's not ignorant to that. I'm sure the statements that he makes, I know he's going to rub someone the wrong way. He always does it, and he continues to do it. And I think that when you come from those cities, those high-populated cities, we can go back and forth about the Electoral College, and I can explain in great depth how that works. And we can go into great depth how 2 or 3 cities can judge the President of the United States for the rest of history of the United States of America. But then you've got 3 or 4 big, huge cities, and you're forgetting about the farmer that provides your oranges, or the farm, or the florist that provides your daisies and sunflowers and potatoes.
Right.
And there's a big population, about 340 million, 349 million. There's about 40, 50 million between New York and maybe Baltimore, maybe D.C. There's a big population. However, that president is the president of the United States of America.
Yeah,
and your opinion is the same as my opinion, which is the same as Farmer Smith down in North Dakota, or up in North Dakota. It's apples and oranges. It's everybody wants for themselves the best, and the majority is what's served. And it's for the greater good.
And
not everyone will be happy.
It's impossible. You're right. It's impossible to make 349 million people happy. And
try to make 4 or 5 boxers happy at one time.
exactly. And
Can't.
we can't get, if there's 2 people in the room and there's a different opinion, that's already conflict. But I also believe that conflict, competition is also evolution. So, in a way, what the country's going through is something that's needed. Maybe it's like a knock on the head, and maybe 20, 30 years from now, things can get back on their feet, so to speak. But what we say is getting back to our feet is going to be somebody else's downfall, or them saying that the country's going downhill. So, again, 349 million people being happy is virtually unreal.
I think that's a very intelligent thing that came from our local millennial.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So that's where you
Absolutely.
But I would say that
Because,
I have a very
we-
old school mindset. I was raised in a Soviet family. Yes, I was born in Russia, and I moved here when I was 8, 9.
we learn things about ourselves. You're right, you know, through conflict. But don't you think we've had enough conflict? Don't you think we've gotten to a point where certain conflicts should not even be an issue? As a human race, I'm not talking within this country. Just as a human race, why is there North Korea? Why is there some guy who thinks that he was born, you know, what is the North Korean guy's story? I'm sure you know it better than I do. That he was born like, you know, and the sun stayed up for 3 days when he was, or whatever bullshit that they've told him that
Pretty
he.
much that's where I was going. It's just historical bullshit that they devised on their own to keep their line of
Why
blood
do
in
people
succession.
lie just for the hell of it? And why does not a person just stand back and say, you know what, this is ridiculous. Science, we already know through science that doesn't happen, all right? Nothing like that happened the day I was born, and I'm not any special. My daddy owned this place, and now I own this place, and that's all it is. This guy is a loon, North Korea guy. But then, you know what? So is our president.
You know, hey, listen.
President's on Twitter.
I got to be honest with you. I can't even put them both in the same, you know, peanut butter jar. You know, there's 2 different flavors here. You know, what does each one represent? I think is important to understand that in North Korea today, about 400,000 people are on the verge of starving to death and will die within a week's time. Because the only people that let's call him Rocket Man. I love that.
Did you say that was in North Korea, you said?
North Korea, yeah.
Georgia.
And the bottom line is, you know, he doesn't care. As long as he feeds his military, the military's happy. They're always doing their high step bounce. They look hard and they look sharp.
Yeah.
And they're everybody in their right mind over there, in their head, is thinking about how to kill that man.
But here's what I'm saying, all right? You being a military man, all right? If we wanted to get rid of North Korea's Kim Jong-il or Im Jong-gul or whatever his name is, you don't think we could do it with a small force and assassinate this guy?
Yes.
But that's not what's going to happen, right? We're going to do a war if we do go there.
Well,
We're going to have a war, and somebody's going to profit.
the unique
And guess who's going to make tons of money from it?
The unique
The
terrain
person who
features-
sends us there.
Understood. And guess what? That's never going to change because you're always going to have technology,
It has to change.
Manpower. How do we change it then? What's the three? I always used to tell my troops, I used to be in charge of 500 young men and women.
Right.
If you've got a problem, if you've got a conundrum, you come to me, but don't come to me and complain. You come to me and you offer me 3 suggestions on how to fix it. I want to hear your 3 suggestions. On
That's
how to
my
fix that.
suggestion. My suggestion is we take a small force, okay, and we get on the ground where he is, where we know he is, okay, through intelligence, and we assassinate him and the closest people to him. I'm saying, you know,
Sure.
who would take up his mantle, you know, assassinate them, then liberate the country.
But then again, wouldn't you say that that same arrogancy that you see in the person that holds the seat of presidency, he jumped the gun and wanted to go ahead and do this, and he caused 6 special operators their lives, and now they're strung live on national TV. There's a lot of repercussions that we don't consider as the seat of the presidency.
You're saying that maybe our guys wouldn't succeed?
What if something went wrong? You know, Murphy's Law, you know?
Yeah.
Murphy's Law happens all the time.
Happened to have not gone wrong for Obama. He assassinated a bunch of dudes.
Kind of went wrong with Hillary, though.
Well, don't let me get started with that.
We can or we can't. But this is your show. I'm just willing to counteract. But they're both a little bit loony in their own ways. But
I'm glad she's not president. Let me just say that.
The majority of this country, now let's respect the country. Let's not respect the government. Let's respect you and me and the young folks and the guy sitting behind the soundboard. Let's respect every human being that has an opinion, that voted for the president, that drove. I personally drove 320 miles to vote for Donald Trump because I couldn't fathom the idea of voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, this is a young Puerto Rican kid from the South Bronx who didn't do the drugs, didn't do the pot, never touched a joint in his life, and anybody can ask you, they can attest that I didn't. However, how did I get that way? Well, my dad was a hardcore New York City cop that would have beat the shit out of me if I did. So I grew up on the straight path, and I grew up to be a Republican empathizer. So I'm a political Republican, but I'm a judicial activist. I believe in abortion. Roe v. Wade, Board of Education, biggest 9-0 unanimous court decision, was desegregated and went against Plessy versus Ferguson.
Right.
And that's where we are now. We're a big melting pot. But is it perfect? It's never going to be perfect. It's going to be a more perfect union. However, we have now Antifa, Nazis, all these so-called liberation organizations.
Who the fuck is Antifa?
It's the guy with the black scarf outside.
Who the fuck is this?
Honestly, I've seen reporters Superman punched. Your MMA broadcast, I've seen a reporter Superman punch with an elbow to the head while doing a broadcast because he was wearing an American pin. Where we've come to this time in our society where violence is free speech. Free speech can't be violence.
It's like our society's going through puberty right now.
It's almost like they're getting pimples on their scrotum. Yeah.
Super
Where the hell did these assholes come from? And what do they believe in?
You know, we've
Because
progressively
they've
gone
been
from free
interviewed.
speech, from
They've been
speech.
interviewed. They don't know dick about what they're protesting.
It's almost comical. I love Fox News. Fox News, Jesse Waters, love you. He interviews these people on the street, and they have absolutely no idea what's going
They're
on.
fucking idiots.
Who's Kim Jong-il? Who's Kim Jong-il? That's the guy from Jeopardy.
They went after Ben
This was
Shapiro.
on Jesse
Ben
Waters.
Shapiro's a Jew, and they're calling him a Nazi. They don't even know who they're.
Hello?
They don't even know.
Besides, I really happen to like Ben Shapiro. He's actually pretty comical. But Berkeley, let's talk about UFC and the colleges. They let these kids burn the schools down.
Yeah.
The first The first cases in the Supreme Court about free speech involved burning of a flag.
Let me just say this. Antifa, you're a bunch of fucking idiots. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
I'd appreciate it if you all go outside, play Russian roulette with a full cylinder, and pass the gun to the next Antifa guy. And I'm not afraid of you. You come punch me, I'm going to punch you.
Are they
twice
for or
as hard.
against the gun laws?
I would hope they'd be against, because at this point, let's talk about
They're just for punching people
They're
in the
pushing
face.
and punching little old ladies holding flags. They're beating women. They're spitting on cops. The one thing you don't want to do, and I'll be honest with you, this isn't a threat, this is a forecast. These people are using violence as their free speech. And these conservatives, these Americans, they're taking it. But the one thing you don't want to do is back a small rat into a corner. Because a small rat knows that when you back them into a corner and you think violence is the right answer, the only outcome can be that rat is going to go for your neck.
Right.
And the conservatives have all the guns. And that's what's scary in this country. It's coming to a civil war.
Right.
When we realize that a lot of the media, a lot of the .orgs, and a lot of these posts are all disinformation.
Well,
meant to
you and
drive a wedge
you and
in between.
I know we both agree on this. And for cities too. Gun laws for everyone. I want to have it everywhere. Everyone should get it, but it should be hard to receive a gun. You know, big background check, can't be drunk. A lot of great laws, a lot of great minds should think about how to properly do it, but everyone should carry a gun, should be able to protect themselves and their family, and should be able to protect their surroundings too. Like in Texas, people, what was it, about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, someone robbed a bank in Texas. Like 5 guys shot him down.
Bad day of work for the robber.
Right.
You go to Arizona, there's a 7-Eleven, there's an 80-year-old woman packing a .357 Magnum on her side. An 80-year-old woman going to buy a pack
Are
of
these
cigarettes.
people bad people that shot this guy?
Well, they will be considered racist if they're other than the race of the person they shot. If it's a white man shooting a black man, or a black man, 5 black men shooting a white man, it's going to be labeled racist.
Right.
Everything is racist.
It's
these
not
days.
like the guy walked in. It's not like the guy walked in and said, "Listen, I'm a peaceful guy. Just give me all your money." He probably had guns. He threatened people. And what an idiot to do that in Texas.
Ferguson, Missouri.
All right.
I'm gonna enlighten the audience. The district attorney came back with a report. Were you aware that in Ferguson, Missouri, Mike Brown got shot in the back like 7 times? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah,
You aware of that?
Ferguson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that.
Okay, I'm gonna pull a winky dink on you. Not one round went into the back of his body. Every round went into the right and front, and as if Mike Brown was charging.
Right.
Now this wasn't an innocent individual. This man had a little bit of a rap sheet, a little violent rap sheet.
Right.
Okay, so now the DNA inside the vehicle showed that Mike Brown's blood and skin were plastered to the inside of the door. Okay, so he was inside the car reaching for the officer's gun. As the officer's gun went off, fighting for the gun, shot Mike Brown with DNA inside the car.
Right.
Okay, so now if all of this action happened outside the car, and there's gun residue, gunshot residue, GSR, and DNA inside the vehicle, and all the gunshots came from the front, did you know that all the witnesses that attested and said that the officer shot him in the back and followed after him all recanted and said, well, they just wanted to be part of the cause? Did you know that?
No.
Read it. That's the fact. So now,
I
did
know
you know,
that-
one more
I know
second,
that-
Tangle, let me give one more point in and then I'm going to give it back to you.
Okay.
Because this really irritates me about some police officers' lives being just destroyed.
Right.
You're a fan of Obama, right? Beer caucus. So on the White House lawn, he invites a professor from Harvard, a personal friend of his, Obama's, and a white police officer. I believe this happened in Cambridge, and the officer was going, the black man was, there was a radio call to the officer. The black professor, highly lauded professor, there's a black man breaking into the house at this such so-and-so, and the police officer goes to the house. What does he find? He finds a black male going into the front of the house. He calls the man outside the house. He says, you, come outside the house for me. I've got a call that said there's a black individual breaking into a house. I need you to come out. He goes, no, 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 this is my house. He says, sir, I need you to come out. Show me your hands and come out. He puts him on the ground, puts him on the curb, and handcuffs him and restrains him. The president very soon after, without any inquiry, without any help from his Department of Homeland Security or law enforcement officer staff, the FBI, calls the action stupid. That white officer acted stupidly. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm an active shooter instructor. I'm a highly advanced marksmanship instructor. Won a couple of gold medals in the police Olympics. You might be able to figure out who I am. However, that police officer did everything textbook. And do you know why? I'll ask the whole room. Does anybody have any idea why that police officer might have done the right thing?
Well, he didn't attack the guy. He asked him to come out until they figured out the situation.
Great point. And why might he do that?
Because of the call that he got. So he's following up on a call. It's his job.
And why?
And if he didn't follow up on that call,
he's culpable and liable.
Yes,
However,
exactly.
Now, Tango, you're going into your house. There's a call that a white man's going into your house and breaking into your house. I roll up and I don't know you, so we're not best friends. I roll up and I say, hey, you, come out of the house. Come this way. Show me your hands. Oh, no, this is my house, Mr. Officer, Mr. Puerto Rican officer. Okay, Mr. Caucasian male, I still need you to come out of the house. Put your handcuffs on, right? Most people would think that was a stupid act. However,
I don't.
Why would you not think it's a stupid act? You being the owner of the house, I'm answering a call. Why do you think it's smart for me to bring you
I don't think the other one was a stupid act. He got a call. He followed up. He did the right thing. Figured out the situation.
But Obama, I mean, am I lying? There was a beer caucus. I think they had Blue Moon beer on the Rose Lawn, on the Rose Garden. Why do you think Obama was wrong? And I'm going to tell you right now. Because a police officer is trained to remove anyone from a threat. If you're going into your house and there was a call and somebody's already in your house waiting for you with a gun to kidnap you or murder you or torture you or rob you, then I'm taking you away from the danger. And I'm removing you away from a dangerous situation. So the white officer was not thinking, he knew the guy probably owned the house, but was he the one that was breaking into the house? Or was he just the unexpected owner that walked up into a situation?
Well, what I was going to say before, I think Ferguson was already proven not to be fault of the police officers.
However, the media, a lot of people don't know the real outcome.
Right.
And we were even a little shady and unsure about the district attorney's report.
Right. Second of all, what was it? About a month ago, right? I thought I may have had a gas leak because I was being charged heavily for gas. I called them and I'm like, listen, either the meter was read wrong or there's a gas leak, something is happening because, you know, how can it be this high? In the summertime, how do we even use that much gas? I don't even use that much gas in the wintertime, I said. So, the woman that I was speaking to said, you think there's a gas leak? And I said, it's a possibility. So she went and called the police, the fire department. I'm like, I'm not at home. Please don't send anyone. I don't think it's a major anything. I'm not at home. You know, don't send anyone. Don't break down my door. Please. They're like, she's like, no. And I'm mad. I'm like, please just don't break down my door. You know, it's a design door that I made, you know, and you just can't get that anywhere. Don't break down my door. Don't call anyone. I'll be there in half an hour, 20 minutes. You can call it then. No. Yeah, I must call. I was absolutely mad. But I understand that it's protocol, just in case something like the house blew up. But at the same time, she could have just stepped back and said, you know what, okay, so if it's been like this for the last few weeks, and you're just wondering if that's the case, how about we just send someone over, let them check first, and then we'll do the whole police thing. But no, she had to do it. And she had to do it because I told her not to. But she believes that it was protocol. So, now you got me off my train of thought. No. I almost felt like she did it on purpose. Okay? She couldn't just be a decent human being, you know? I'm the one that's calling. But no, she had to go by her protocol.
Right.
There are some times, listen, if a police officer came to me, to my house, because he got a call, the first thing that would run to my house is, who the hell gave you a call? This is my house. I might not believe the police officer, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, two other thoughts would have gone into my mind. What if this guy isn't a real police officer? What if he made this up to attack me? You know, he's got some police officer outfit, things like that.
Police car.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. What if my aunt had nuts? She'd be my uncle.
But I would like to think I would go outside and I tell him my wallet is in my left pocket, hands up, you can see my face and you can see my address, that I belong here. You know? But would I ever, as a civilian, find out if he really got that call?
Would you understand if after he handcuffed you and he explained it to you?
Yeah.
Would you understand? Would you take that into consideration?
Of
Hey,
course.
you were looking out for my life. I appreciate it, officer. Thank you very much. Let me give you a cold glass of water.
But here's the thing.
But it turns out into an immediate racial
But when it's
incident.
your own home and no one from your house has made that call.
Neighbors. They
Why
see
would someone?
The man was walking around the side, looking inside the window. Apparently, he had locked himself out of his own house.
Oh, that's what they were seeing. Yeah.
So, it looks kind of hinky.
Right.
And it's a officer's job. It's called dereliction of duty and neglectful response. If you don't go to as a police
But
officer.
that's another thing. Let me add to that. If I was doing that, then I would know, okay, a neighbor has called because I was sneaking around the house because I locked myself or something like that. I would know what the situation was. But if I'm laying and watching my favorite TV show, Game of Thrones,
Khalees is awesome. She's not as bare anymore, I almost feel
I
gypped.
was watching my favorite show and someone...
watch that
Well,
show.
cartoons are still good, Hot anus.
All
Sorry about that.
right.
I'm not letting a joke.
So he likes Narcos.
I love Narcos. That's great.
If I'm just sitting around watching my favorite show and someone comes, I might say to myself, no. I'm not coming. I might say, no, I'm not coming out.
That's great.
I'm not even going to open the door.
But you know what that
I'm
tells
going to
me?
call the police.
You know what that tells me?
What?
The SWAT team's coming because you're a barricaded hostage now. We don't know. We've got to call.
Don't I have the right?
Hold on a second. Your taxes pay for us to protect you.
Right.
Against your better judgment. You're not trained like a police officer is. The same way Obama had no police training. But immediately he jumped high anus.
But what happens if it is a guy who is making himself out to be a police officer, but he's not, and he's trying to rob me?
That's possible.
That's possible, right? So I have to assess the situation myself. And if I call, if I tell,
that's the problem of youth today. Now we're older gentlemen.
if I tell the police officer, I am calling the police right now, and I'm confirming that you're supposed to be.
Now when you pull
If
out
he
that
says-
black shiny phone, Tango,
not inside of my house. I'm not talking about.
Well,
I'm talking about inside of
do you have a landline in your house? Do you have a cord?
No.
You use a black shiny cell phone, right?
I do.
Okay. High anus. What movie?
The conflict of two minds. You have a guy that's
My cousin
trying
Vinny.
to protect.
Right. Yeah.
Put two and two together. Hey, listen. If the guy's got a uniform,
It's not the first time somebody got robbed because someone made believe that they were a police officer.
people get pulled over with blue lights all the time. I get that. If you're a female, drive to your local police department. Drive to a lit up area, honk your horn like there's no tomorrow, and call
But that doesn't
911.
change the fact that Obama had the right to say that that man was stupid when he was
did
doing
not have that
everything right.
He wasn't educated
Right.
in law enforcement, so he
I'm just
doesn't
talking
understand
about.
protocol.
I'm just talking about what the other man may have been thinking. But in that case, perfect. Everything was done right. The man did the right thing. It was beautiful. I'm saying the police officer did the right thing, and the man eventually came out. Right? He handcuffed him, so he did the right thing too.
No, that was a civil rights complaint. It turned out to be a civil rights complaint,
That
which may or
was-
may not have ruined
Right.
a man's life because the man was a personal friend of the
That could have
president
been-
of the United States.
That could have been aftermath thought. Maybe someone from the community said, you know what, this should have never happened to you. And the guy's like, you know what, maybe you're right. You're right, that shouldn't have happened to you.
Meanwhile, that
Your rights were
officer-
violated.
that officer's
You're right.
record is
That
a flawless, perfect record
Right.
by the city,
right.
lauded for his community policing.
First of all, I want to say this, all right? The stuff that I see on the internet, how these kids are treating police officers now, you know, how disrespectful, you know, it makes me upset.
Well, it goes to show the professionalism of your law enforcement community. When someone comes up and flips a bird 2 inches from a police officer's face,
Right.
and he knows that it's an ignited situation, and there's possibly riots going to ensue, this is what we pay our professionals for.
Right. You started off by saying there's 10% maybe
It's
bad,
almost like Pareto's
but
law.
it's only maybe 1% that actually do wrong things.
Get caught.
Right.
A long time ago, we never had cameras every 2 seconds.
Why condemn the whole lot of them?
Why do we do that in society? Why do we fear what we don't know? We have fear for everything we do not know.
I think we're hateful beings.
I think innately that might be the case.
I think we're spoiled in terms of how our society is.
Hateful,
yeah.
it's hateful stuff. But yeah, you're right about that. But I think people, whether we were spoiled or not, the same shit would happen.
I
don't
personally
think-
take offense to small things like flag desecration and disrespect, only because I have a certain history.
I do too.
I don't care if it's a white man or a black man or a Jewish man or a Muslim man kneeling down, but I take slight offense. I think it's tasteless. However,
Let's talk about that too.
protected by the First Amendment, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, and freedom to practice.
Okay,
religion.
so you've admitted you're Puerto Rican, right?
Puerto Rican.
You're Catholic.
Como estás usted? That's a country.
You're
Puerto
Catholic,
Rican.
right?
I'm well. I'm not a practicing Catholic.
No,
I like
but
to believe in yes.
You're
in
born,
God, yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if I come up to you as an interviewer, okay, a reporter, and I say, what comes first to you, this country or your beliefs, or your race? What would you say?
I would say honestly, what comes before me is my brother, and I am my brother's keeper. And I think it's our responsibility. I think society should be judged on how we treat each other. So it's got to be country.
Yeah.
God is always there.
Right.
God's always been there.
Right.
There's no choosing between God before or after.
Right.
God's always been there. So what I can do, what I can change, I always tell my troops, I always told my fellow agents, if there's something that you can change it. But have
I'm
the
for it.
strength to know that if you cannot change it,
Right.
you have to let that go.
Right. That's how I see it. Country first. I may be other things, you know. Country first. I'm an American, you know. And if I can't get that across first, as who I am, I don't deserve to be in this country. Of course, nobody's going to kick me out if I said the latter, right? But still, you're here. You're using the greatness that comes from this country, our laws, our generosity, okay, all that stuff. People use it, yet they still don't respect America. That pisses me the fuck off.
I find it
but
to be
here's
the rich
what,
elites that are disrespecting the most.
who?
The rich elite
Yeah.
athletes who 15 years ago were
Isn't
scraping
that what's happening in the
dirt
news today?
to get to that fame
Right.
and that fortune and celebrity and the ability to take care of your family and your wife and your children.
Right.
And the first thing they do is they spit on the same path that got them to it.
Got them to
The
it.
pursuit is guaranteed. Happiness is not.
Right. We'll get into that in a second. But here's
a lot
here's
of
another,
seconds in this show.
Here's another thing. All right. Now, if you think back to Nazi Germany, all right, it was a thriving country,
Absolutely. Socialism was a rage.
socially ahead of its time, scientifically ahead of its time. They're ahead of everyone. They probably would have taken over the world just from good ideas, not from killing people. And even Einstein considered himself a German.
Factually, yes.
Right, but eventually when the Nazis came into power, they didn't consider themselves Germans anymore. They considered themselves Jews, you know? Because even though they considered themselves Germans before, they were now betrayed by Germany. So, yes, my first saying is I'm an American. But if America starts doing something to anyone, like the Mexicans, okay, they're not our enemies. They're wonderful people. They're great people, you know. There's a bad lot in
You mean the
everywhere.
Mexicans within our country or the
Yeah.
Mexicans in Mexico?
Both.
Okay, so, and that's what the country, that's what the
I'm not talking MS-13.
No,
I'm
no,
not
no, I
talking
get that.
that.
I get that. But that's what the Constitution calls for. The Constitution says that we have the right as a people to overthrow a tyrannical government. We
Right.
have that right.
Right.
That's our right in the Declaration of Independence.
I don't think
That's what-
Mexico's a tyrannical government.
No.
Right.
If our government were to treat our citizens that way,
Right.
we have the right to stand in militia and bear arms and protect
Right,
ourselves.
exactly.
And it's in that vein that
Right.
we do it.
And they should be able to protect themselves too. But if America started doing things like that, or rounding up Muslims,
You know, we rounded up Japanese in World War II.
Right.
Okay.
if America started rounding up Muslims for these horrible acts that a few do, and believe me, I'm not on the liberal side of any of it, but I also know that you
Tony
can't.
points at me when he says that.
Right.
Oh, by the way, he is Muslim.
Well, I can tell. He's got the great looks, the beautiful charm, the cheeks, and the eyes that pop with that nice medium shirt.
But Shmedium,
Once again,
if they started doing that, I would feel un-American.
yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I've been
But
in the military the same
What?
way. However,
here, there is shit going on in this country. You know what? President Trump, if you're so worried about these people that could come here, and so am I understand that too. What about the camps that are in this country right now? There's one in upstate New York.
we've hit this point a while back. And I got to be honest with you, I'm telling you, they know everything about every inch of those camps.
Right.
And it's easier to keep an eye on it and possibly follow up on possible leads
Right.
than it is to shut it all down and have to count on exterior countries and exterior foreign information surveillance acts and exterior counter surveillance to get the information. So if you've got what do you get? A hen in the hen house? What do they call it? What's that phrase?
I know what you're talking
A
about.
rooster in the hen house.
Uh-huh.
Why would you let the rooster go? So
Because
there's great minds
right.
that know things that I don't know.
Of course.
There's strategic minds that I'd rather have
I
clear and
totally-
transparent information than covert. I love clear and transparent, but to the point where we've got people out in the middle of some mountain somewhere by the last name is Smith or Jonesy, and he's out there trying to protect this country from the same threats that hit us on 9/11/2001.
I understand, okay, but just like federal agents, I'm talking federal agents, the policing kind, all right? When they make someone a rat for them, and they get this person in trouble.
Do we make someone a rat, or does someone put themselves in a
Position, yeah.
to break the law
Yeah,
and then say, hey, listen, I don't mind giving up my family members
right.
because I want an easier. Well, hey, listen,
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't
not
know-
as black
I
and
don't
white
know
as
if-
that.
I don't. It may not be as black and white. It's just please, poof, you're a rat.
Yeah, but what about
You're
the
a
guy?
rat.
What about the guy who's trying to get his brother out of jail, and he's forced into becoming a rat and almost gets killed, or does get killed for it, because they put him into a society that he didn't choose, but his brother chose. But they put him in there and did get that person killed because they needed an informant. I think that's the same thing, No, you know what? If it exists, if they're training people to kill people, especially us people, get rid of it. Why watch them? You already know what they're doing. Get rid of it.
Okay, so in the case of the airplane, I had two options: land the airplane, take the laptop, or I didn't tell you this part.
Take the airplane and land the laptop.
Boom, boom. Haven't you seen the movie? I kept one laptop, or I follow all 14 that were in the first class passenger cabin and follow all of them and get all the information. Do I take the one laptop, or do I get all of them? I chose to get all of them. That opened up 48 or 49 other trees of investigation.
But if there was immediate danger, you would have acted.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying.
Last time a laptop killed anybody, was when I got some pictures caught from my
Okay.
ex-wife.
So maybe I am proving your point then. All right. So yes. All right. So but still.
And it's not about winning or losing.
Right.
It's about brainstorming. And it's about opening up people's minds to, you know, in mixed martial arts, there's two opposing forces.
Right.
And there's a referee. Well, it's the same thing in government. There's the Republicans and the Democrats. You got Bernie Sanders in there too. You know, we love that guy. But there's a balance.
I love Bernie. Leave Bernie alone.
Gotta love a little Bernie. Free college for everybody. Free everything for everybody. Free. Let's go out. Let's have a program, a campaign for free everything for everybody, and let's show you as a middle class worker and the people earning wages how free it is. Because in France, everything's free. Everything. You even get a cell phone. Government cell is great. Guess what you pay in taxes? 62% of what you earn.
Right.
What everybody and the people who don't want to work, check this out. This is the catch. This is the great. This is the good.
Nothing is free, right?
Nothing is free, but they don't work. So they all get top line medical. But now you want to make $100,000 a year as a beat cop, but $62,000 goes to the government because the same people that you are arresting, you have to pay to provide their benefits.
Right.
So there's a catch-all.
How I see, listen, I get it, but how I see these camps that are operating inside the country, yes, you could get more people with that by surveilling them. But let's say, okay, today you could get 100 people, right? And it's just throwing out a number. And then in 6 months you could get 200 people. But what if they recruit and they train 10 times what you might get?
I'll put it into your respect, your perspective here. You got a licensed gym, beautiful gym, state of the art, make it mutant, state of the art. Go down to a fight club, an illegal fight club, same type of fighters you're fighting. Hey, you want to bust up that fight club because you got a legitimate government sponsored, bonded, right?
Yes.
So what do? You send the millennial in undercover,
Right.
and now he becomes part of the illegal operation. And what does he do for you? He brings you back information.
Every time the word millennial comes on,
Brings back the information.
Right.
So do you arrest the 5 or 6 boxers that are possibly illegally fighting, or do you infiltrate it and glean all of the information so you can get all the illegal activity that's threatening this country?
No, I
so
see
it's
that.
gleaning information.
I see
And
that.
you can arrest them. Sure, put them all locked away. What do you gain? You get a couple of collars, right? But now you get somebody in there. You put the millennial in there, in that camp, and now he's doing weapons tactics. And now he's building a new iPhone that has the ability to make him invisible. But we don't know this until somebody goes in and finds out. And that's why we don't automatically shut down every single camp that we know about, that we're tracking. There's technology up there.
Right. I know, I get it.
They can see him.
I get it. But would it not be an intelligent thing to do is to wipe out just the threats?
Ping pong. I'll ping it right back to you.
Okay.
You wipe out all the threats, cockroach grows up, takes his place.
All right.
Sound
But
like
then
a lot?
that person has to organize for another 5 years, right?
No. No. ISIS is very well organized. ISIS has helicopters. ISIS has tanks.
They don't have it here.
No, they had it there.
But for them to start
And for us
another
to
camp,
fight the war there, you'd
Yeah, but for them to
happen instead of doing it here.
for them to start another camp, okay, how long would it take them?
It wouldn't take them very much at all. Fear is an amazing tool out there. You threaten
That's
the
what I'm
village
saying.
mayor and say, we're going to slay all of your children until you start to work with us. And the moment you don't work with us, we're going to know, and we're going to slay your entire village. Guess what?
Things
Now
like that
I
are
go in,
happening?
I go into a I go into a meeting with the village mayor. Mayor, what can I do for you? Absolutely nothing, my interpreter says. He says, are you sure? Is there anything? Can we rebuild your infrastructure, help you with your water? We're trying to keep this area secure from ISIS. No. Because the fear of God is already in him. And he's not going to trust a foreigner that may be gone in 4 or 5 years, which was the problem with Obama. We're pulling everybody out. Then ISIS, who's going to be there for the rest of their lives. It's a balancing act. It's just
No,
very
I'm
delicate.
talking about in the country. I'm not talking about outside. I'm talking about in the country, you know?
Well, why are we fighting outside the country?
That I get.
And they are, I'm witnessing to you as my friend,
Right.
they are here. It's not a terror tactic. I'm not trying to scare the population.
Right.
I'm fearful myself. And when you lose that edge, that's when they're going to get lucky that one time. Because all they have to do, and we've talked about this prior, is get lucky one time.
Well, here's Listen, man, this conversation could go out for forever.
Absolutely.
And
And it will.
Yes, and it will. We will have you back. I gotta go because I have to see my kid's teacher. But we had a great conversation.
I really appreciate it.
I am
enjoyed
turning the
conversation.
table. Hold on, I'm turning the table. We were gonna finish the conversation. How about you two finish the conversation, and I'm gonna head. All right?
Sure.
I like it. All right.
You are a great man.
I appreciate you
love you.
inviting me, and I will be back.
And-
And don't point that finger at me. It could be loaded.
Hi, thanks.
You're
Yeah,
an
well,
awesome
we definitely
man.
will. I'd like
And-
to have a nice talk with the young man and see what he feels about
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on in the country. I
Yeah.
think we're going to talk about a little NFL.
I want to watch this show afterwards and be like, damn, those are some good things. All right, talk about NFL. See what's going on. Guys, R10, you rock. Thank you all. I'll see
How
you.
much time do we have to fill?
Okay, so
Just keep talking. Enjoy.
I just want to hit this NFL game. Yeah, later.
To be honest with you,
Be safe. There's threats out there, by the way. Look around your shoulder. They're all over the place. They're not all over the place. It's actually
The
pretty
threats-
safe.
I heard something about the NFL, some kind of commotion, and Donald Trump tweeting to what was it, an NFL player, but I don't know the.
So let me
the
give
details.
you the brief rundown.
I don't watch NFL to begin with. Probably the Super Bowl, but that's about it.
Big football games started recently. The players are kneeling down to protest social injustice.
Are you gonna be able to sit with us? So it's all right. Okay. R10. This is R10, by the way.
Okay, R10.
Yeah.
So guys, I'm always here, but I'm in the
He's
back.
behind the scenes. He's the guy that makes all the magic happen. So they kneel down to the protest social injustice, and they do it during, as soon as the national anthem plays, and they do it to the flag. Well, I guess their rendition of what this flag stands for is different than what a lot of America thinks it stands for, and it's not only tasteless, because for me, a 30-year vet who's been in the highest ranks in the enlisted forces and protected this country for over 27 years, it represents to me the blood of all the fellow friends and family members that have spent time around the world, not just recently, protecting the country and what it stands for. It's our declaration to the world of what we are and who we are. And I think the First Amendment right is always to be protected, unless it's unprotected speech. If it's violence or causes imminent action to lawless behavior, or if it's fraudulent or fighting words, then it's not protected. And anything that you others say that is not obscene should be protected. I just think it's baseless and tasteless, and apparently a lot of the country does. You could say that the NFL ratings have gone down because of it. They said that they've gone down today tremendously. So recently it's been going on where everyone's been taking a knee during the national anthem, which is like right before you guys have a fight.
That started with Colin.
Colin Kaepernick from San
that
Francisco.
started with him.
Right. And then there was Spike Lee came out and advocated for him, saying, hey, listen, we think that he didn't get signed because he kneeled down. And personally, I think he was a good quarterback, but if I was a billionaire like Jerry Jones and I wanted to hire a quarterback, it would have been Prescott, or would have been, Cam Newton, but it definitely would have been a guy like Kaepernick. He wasn't really great after the first year. He went all the way to the playoffs and it's the playoff run to the Super Bowl. And he was a good player. I mean, he was a contender, but he hadn't done anything in the past 3 or 4 years. So he takes this knee during the national anthem, and he ends up being the talk of the town. And everybody's advocating, he's a great guy. So now, flashback later, Donald Trump yesterday tells Roger Goodall, the NFL commissioner, he says, hey, you tell all your owners and coaches that if those sons of bitches won't stand up or something like that, then fire them. Well, they got offended because the president of the United States called them sons of bitches. And, and they took offense to that because they're standing up for social injustice. Well, the big thing is desecrating the flag for what it really stands for, freedom of speech or expression that should be protected. Of course, it's not violent, but it stands for the same people that fought for this country from England. Where did they protest? They protested the game that played here at 7 o'clock in the morning that was overseas. It was in London. Now, 230 some odd years ago,
we declared our freedom from England because they were importing millions of slaves from Africa. They were tyrannically taxing and putting people in prison from the colonies. And they were, and it was our people. It was James Madison, Thomas Jefferson. It was the First Continental Congress. It was George Washington that put together a fight against Boston, England, after the Boston Massacre. And John Adams defended the English soldiers and got them pretty much mostly off. But they were killing people. So what happened was, this NFL player goes to that country, which is the UK, which is our friend now, but he kneels down on the national anthem. He doesn't know what that stands for. He doesn't know what England was, that we had to fight for our freedom. And all the people that died are being trampled on. Everyone that went to World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, all of them died for one gentleman who's a super rich athlete to kneel down. And as you can see, that offended a lot of America. Maybe not everyone, because I don't believe this country is 100% race-free, racism-free. I know it exists. I'm not immune. But it isn't what it was before, where our human beings were being tossed up on a tree and hung and treated like animals. But it wasn't so far ago, a few years ago, there was a man in Texas that was chained to a pickup truck and dragged to his death. It might be surprising to know, but this is the stuff that you'd think happened in Mississippi 40, 50 years ago. This just happened recently. So there is racism. And police, yeah, they may have a bias. They may just be in a population where it's totally Hispanic and black. Being a Hispanic police officer, I've been to areas where there's a lot of crime. And where you have a lot of crime, and it's a small city, small town like Ferguson or other areas, you see the crime. You know who the criminals are. You've arrested them 3 or 4 times, and you know who their cohorts are. So if you see them, you're more apt to pay attention. But I think in the NFL, their social injustice needs to be addressed, of course. Half of the NFL is black, half of it's white. I don't know if that's the right ratio, but it's a fair mix. What do you guys think about racism and how that was addressed? Do you think there's a better place, a better time for it? As a private company, if you come into my bank, and I'm Nation's Bank, and you come in, and before you start withdrawing your money, I say, America sucks. I have a right to say it. Well, my manager's probably going to fire me. Do you think that's the same way in a private organization like the NFL?
My whole thought of it is like, there's better ways to do this protest, but this was like the biggest stage they could have done it on. Like Colin Kaepernick could have tweeted all this, but the biggest way for him to get this exposure was doing it in an NFL game where millions of people are watching, and it's gonna catch everyone in the state, and everyone in the stadium is seeing it. And now it's catching on to entire teams and owners. I saw the picture of Jerry Jones also kneeling down yesterday or last Sunday. And so this is the biggest way to get it trending, I guess. But it's again, like, it's cool that it's a non-violent way to protest, which is good. But at the end of the day, the flag does represent military men and women, and it's like, it's disrespectful to them, you know? I get it's not towards them, it's towards police brutality, it's towards the politics now. It started out as towards police brutality, but now it's against the Trump and the administration. But that flag still represents the military men and women, and kneeling down for that, that's where you can't fully agree with it. But then again, it is non-violent, so there's better ways.
It's totally constitutional.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not illegal.
We should listen to what his explanation of what he's representing.
I heard it today.
As opposed to just taking it as a general offense. And what I mean by that is, let's say he disrespected the American flag to some, but if those weren't his intentions and he intended to deliver a different message, then we should take it as such. We shouldn't tell him the message he's trying to deliver to us. We should listen to what the message that he's trying to deliver, because at the end of the day, he did it in a non-violent way. There was the thing in Virginia with the fascists in Virginia. That was a more violent way. That seemed like in a more brutal and less modern way. KKK hasn't been around in the amounts that it's been around for years. So I believe, I'm not saying it's, because to be honest, I still to this day don't know, I haven't heard his interviews, I haven't heard his explanation, but we should listen to what he's saying and not tell him what he's representing. We can't tell him what he's doing. He has to explain to us what he's doing, and we have to take it for that.
And that's a great point. If he has a great explanation and he has a great reason, is the flag still is the national anthem at the time to voice that? Good population, good number, and that's a tactic that terrorists use. I'm not equating him to a terrorist, but a terrorist looks for a situation or an incident where he's going to get the most sensationalism out of the smallest bang for the buck. And on that stage, he did it. He achieved what he achieved. And in doing so, he made his point, and I'm sure it will be remembered. Will it change anything? I don't know, because there's always going to be inherent dislike for other people of other colors, races, and creeds, just because they're other races, colors, and creeds. It's ignorance. And in my opinion,
It's ignorance of two men who have the same blood and tissue and DNA, but are afraid because they don't know anything about your religion or my religion or his religion, or his color, my color, and your color. And I think that problem is going to perpetuate. But I think that in maintaining the structure and the culture and the values which made this country what it is, that guarantees everyone here a pursuit to cherish and look out for your well-being and your family's well-being and pursue happiness. And going back to our original comment with Tango, is the Constitution was built to form a more perfect union. But it will never be perfect because we're human and we're infallible. We're all fallible, actually. We're not infallible. So in essence, are we looking for the utopia? Are we looking for something that's not going to ever perfectly be? And I think that's what the real conversation is how do we make it more better without destroying statues and history and desecrating our American flag? You know, what do you think about one man from, I'll tell you two instances. One man called Alejandro Villanueva is a Mexican Pittsburgh Steeler of Spanish Latino descent. He came out of the tunnel and he stood at he was an Army Ranger. So he went out there in his Pittsburgh uniform, held his helmet in his hand, and put his hand over his heart. And he stayed there and he sung the national anthem. Without his team, his whole team stayed in the locker room.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's out there all by himself. His coach tore into him, Coach Thomas. He's a black man. He tore into him. Told him he shouldn't have done that. And he went out there without his team. Okay, in essence, something to that effect. He came out today and kind of drew back and apologized. And says, hey, listen, you know, I didn't mean to put the spotlight on myself. Maybe I shouldn't have done, left my team alone, or I should have stayed with my team. He made that man second guess who he was and what he stood for. And now, the famous quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this morning said, you know what? In hindsight, I should have been out there with him, and we should have been next to him, and we should have stood by our teammate. So now who's right and who's wrong? It's so confusing. It really is, but there's a time and a place, and what Dallas did yesterday, Dallas took a knee before the national anthem. And they were all locking arms. When the national anthem started to play, then they all stood up and put their hands over their hearts. So maybe before the national anthem is a better way to go about doing it.
Yeah, I didn't know that they stood up. So.
Yeah, they took. Well, yeah, that's and a lot of people don't.
But
a lot of people
that are getting released are
sure,
the ones kneeling
yes,
down.
absolutely.
So that's what confused me.
and here we go with media and how media
News,
can spin things.
what they put out.
Great conversation.
Yeah. But the thing about the Alejandro, I think it's important to just do what you think is right. I'm sure there was a lot of people that are kneeling down because they feel pressured. Just the way he apologized, he was pressured to do that. But you said he was a veteran?
He's an Army Ranger.
Yeah, so
3 years.
So like he knows, he's been through that. Like we could all talk like what we would do if we were overseas fighting, but at the end of the day, we have no idea. We could pretend like we would be strong, but we don't know the mental capacity.
I can tell you you're right, and I can tell you Russ Logan, Louis Bonacasa, all guys killed on my watch when I was out there. So I can tell you exactly what Alejandro Villanueva was thinking, and what he was commemorating, and what he was memorializing when he was out there with his hand over his heart. It's the fact that he looked over to the left and looked over to his right, and his best friend was no longer there. And that's what he was thinking. He wasn't thinking anything about social justice at the time. There's a time, a place, and a manner, and that's where free speech is judged and gauged. And it will be. Time, place, and manner. And there's so many things that we can discuss, and I hope that we can discuss those in the future, because that makes every bit of difference when we can have dialogue, and other people can see a Democrat or a Republican, an older guy and a younger guy communicating and making sense, instead of going out to a square around a statue and throwing bricks and 2x4s and fire at each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like the whole protesting thing, it's almost like becoming a trend now. Like you have to do it to fit in. Like, oh, why aren't you protesting? What, are you against what we're up to? It's like, no, I'm not necessarily against it, but I'm not totally for what you're doing. Because it's like the whole social media age, like, oh, like that guy, Alejandro, I'm sure he didn't do it just to be alone, like the coach said. Like, oh, you just wanted to be the center of attention. He did it because he just felt that was right.
Everything is labeled, everything is in groups, and if you're voting for Donald Trump, then you're a racist and you're this and you're that. What if I am just simply not racist? And I didn't vote personally, you know? I wanted to stay out of that for that reason specifically that we're talking about. But what if you're just not racist and you don't represent the negative things that the media portrays of Donald Trump, and you just simply like his tax plan, you simply like what he wants to do for this country, his plans for the future, for years from now, healthcare, this and that? What if you're voting for those things? What if that's why you're voting for Donald Trump, or you're just simply not racist?
Totally acceptable. And that's what I liked about Trump, is that he wants to rebuild the infrastructure. I can take you for a quick drive and show you 3 bridges that are a spit away from collapsing. The whole infrastructure in the United States is about 100 years old, starting from New York City, more than 100 years old. The sewer system, everything is rotting. Everything is breaking down. The dams, the dikes, the rivers, the bulkheads, everything needs to be replaced. It's the oldest. New York City started. I mean, it's the East Coast. It's where the colonies were. So everything is very old. And for this country to let it go is just going to be causing more and more buildup of debt and deficit and borrowing to replace and repair. So that's where we are right now. I get it. I love the infrastructure idea. I love lower taxes for everybody. Lower taxes means you can go out and buy your girlfriend something nice tomorrow, and you can pay taxes. And those taxes will go back to the government, because the more money you get in your pocket, the more you want to spend. And I like that. And for the point being, I'm not really too much into. It's not my right to choose a woman's decision. It's a woman's decision to choose a woman's decision. And if 2 political party members, a female on each side, decide to hash it out and discuss it, I'm for that. Bricks don't have to be thrown. Bombs don't have to be put in an abortion clinic, which is what's happened throughout the course of our history. Picketing, rioting, it's senseless violence. But a lot of people feed off of it. And what I find peculiar is that in a lot of these videos, when the riotings are taking place, like in Texas, there were no rioting. There was hardly rioting. In Miami, the kids are all stealing sneakers out of the stores. It's 2 different areas, 2 different cultures, 2 different mindsets. And in Miami, there wasn't a lot of everybody just pulling together and right away. You know, it was a little bit of unsurety, and then there was looting, and then people started helping each other. And thank God the law enforcement officers did the right thing and found those folks and arrested them. But in Texas, man, the Cajun Navy came and they dragged everybody out of their houses. They saved lives, old people, young people, babies, moms, husbands, wives. All the cops left their families. All the soldiers left their families. And they're going through, in Puerto Rico, let's not discuss what's going on over there. That's an entire U.S. territory that is as flat as this table. They've got no electricity. They went back 50 years. And you got to say, you know, what are we arguing about? You know, the big picture is after 9/11. How old were you guys after 9/11?
I was in elementary school during 9/11.
7 years old.
Okay. I've never seen this country come together more ever in my life than that week.
Yeah, I heard that too from a lot of people. Like my parents said the same thing.
There was just an immense feeling of love and empathy. And I was in Italy at the time. And there was love and empathy from the Italians. And it was in a way that's a different time, different story. But I understand Trump. I understand that he doesn't understand what comes out of his mouth sometimes. and he's fallible. But I also understand that in the Constitution, do you know who the only president ever was to be impeached?
No.
Recent time. It was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It was Andrew Johnson a long time ago, but Nixon resigned before he had the opportunity to be impeached. But impeachment, it's indicative that the representatives of this country found fault with the way he was taking money from other countries, Saudi Arabia, and putting it into this foundation. So I don't blame Hillary for that, but you can't say that she's ignorant with the emails. I'll tell you right now, if I'm an enlisted man and I take a top secret email and I send it out to my home server, I'm not only losing my career, I'm being put in prison and possibly doing at least 5 years in Leavenworth. But the elite, Hillary, showed me what she was about during Benghazi, and when she didn't act on Benghazi, and it was more of a political tool for her because the election was coming up. This was her baby. She couldn't let this get out, and she let an ambassador die, and she let operators die that were out there trying to protect them. And I couldn't, in good conscience, vote for her. So my only other option.
Principally, you couldn't.
Principally, I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I had to go with a guy who apparently gropes and believes what 90% of the people in this gym probably talk about on any given day. So, ethically,
it's unfortunate, but I feel majority of people that get behind that booth to vote don't really know. They're voting for a character. They're voting for a personality. They're not really voting for that. That's another reason why I don't vote, because I didn't do my research. I don't know exactly what I'm voting for, and I'm not gonna vote for a character. I'm not gonna fall into this trend of Trump versus Hillary. And if you're white, you vote for Trump, and if you're black and this and that, and you vote for Hillary. If you're feminist, you vote for Hillary.
Right.
So these groups of people vote for Hillary, and these groups of people vote for Donald Trump. I just refuse to take any part of that. That was my reason for not wanting to vote. But that's another reason that I feel like the majority of people are like that. If you ask the average person that voted for Donald Trump or for Hillary, specific questions about what they're trying to do in their election and in their time in office, they won't really know, and it would just be a trend for them. It's a social media thing. It's a thing on social media. People are going at it on social media, on the streets, and this and that. So that's like my biggest issue. That's where I feel this country is in a bad position, is that we have that's what we're going after. We're voting for personalities and characters, and not what they preach, not what they're doing for this country.
Unfortunately, it's what these candidates look like on TV, and what they say, what they're spitting out. But whether it comes to fruition or not, that's the case. Okay, so today somewhere in Texas, I believe it's in Texas or Arizona, they're putting together, I think, 6 big walls. Okay, so he talked about this wall during his campaign.
Yeah.
And he said that was his main thing, and it's going to happen. Well, today there's 6 corporations that are building 6 different pieces of walls for him to take a look at and decide. And we'll go home today and we'll figure it out. We'll hear about what he decided. But he's speaking to his points. He's speaking to his campaign points, and he's following through. It's been a long time before a president's actually done that. And I feel bad, because I used to be a Democrat, and I was being told that, hey, Hispanics and blacks, we're going to help you. We're going to do this for you. We're going to come through for you year after year. And then I became 30, and year after year. And then I became 44 and 45. And nothing ever changed. Nothing. Not one thing. So now this man came along, a white guy with orange hair who has a foul mouth, and he says, guess what? You've been lied to your whole adult life.
He's like the Conor McGregor of politics.
Yes. And he says, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? And a lot of people got real. And they says, what do we have to lose? So unfortunately, no nuclear bombs have been deployed from America. The sky hasn't fallen. The economy hasn't fallen. Contrarily, the stock market is 22,398 as per yesterday. It's the highest it's ever been, ever.
But we're busy discussing a tweet that he put out.
But we're busy discussing a tweet.
The entire country.
However, everybody's discussing that tweet on all these channels, and guess what? Their 401ks are getting big and healthy, in fact. And they're paid commentators. And MSNBC and Fox News are at it like cats and dogs. But it's all business. Okay, so the notoriety and the media portion is always going to generate income and finances. It's all about commercials. Now the NFL, when we go back to the NFL, they're losing money on these commercials because pretty much when people stop filling seats and stop watching the TV, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it this week at all. I just don't want to. That's my personal opinion. You know, I'd rather watch hockey or the fights or MMA on TV. But I don't have to tune into something. That's what's great about this country. In other countries, if you don't tune into something or you don't speak the right way, they cut your hand off or they'll cut your tongue out of your mouth. This is the only country in the world you can flip off your president and not feel like your life is going to be ended.
That's what I meant when I said earlier that we were spoiled with the amount of rights we have, the amount of rights we're protected by, the amount of laws we're protected by for doing so. There's no consequences
Brother,
to some of the stupid things
I'd
we
like
say.
to tell you I don't agree, but I do. Because I can tell you, I
I can show you 144 countries I've been to. I can show you 144 countries I've visited. And you go to any of those countries that I've been to, and you speak up against a president like you've spoken to here, I guarantee you,
you're in jail for at least 4 or 5 years. Try that in Venezuela, Cuba. Try it in North Korea.
try it in China. And that's just the big ones. So we're in a country where we can flip off a police officer, and as long as we're not violent and it's protected speech by our First Amendment, we don't have it bad. We don't have it bad. And we owe people here, generations here, owe a burden. And I think it's called the white man's burden. And the white man's burden is owed to Native Americans and to what they called in the Constitution bounded servants. Bounded servants were slaves. And I think we owe it to remember that and to learn from it. Because when you forget history, which is what everyone's trying to do, erase history. But when you forget history, what are you damned to do? You're damned to repeat all the mistakes that you've made. And that's what the important thing is here. So it's not a statue of Robert E. Lee. Take the statue and stick it in a museum somewhere. Put a big statue next to Martin Luther King and say this was the before and after, and this is what was and this is what is. But you can't judge two different times. You can't judge 250 years ago when bounded servants were in the Constitution and the law until 1806, and 2017, where it's despicable, and the thought of it makes me, and sex slavery and slavery of anyone makes me want to murder. You know, and it's the thought of it is disgusting. So we're judging people back then on our standards for today. That's not right. That's history. Write it down, learn from it, and let's move on. And I think that's where this country has to go, with young people leading us in the right direction. You know, I see young people at this table, and it's not the young people that I'm familiar with. The young people that I'm familiar with want everything free, want everything handed to them, want everything given to them, and don't expect to work hard, and don't expect to put in the time. And that's what the problem is with the culture, where the culture's coming. And I don't know where that comes from.
There's a reason why, because you've said it a few times, pursuit of happiness. There's no such thing as like happiness. It's not going to just fall on your lap, it's the chase for it. Like, you're not going to just get a UFC belt. The chase for it is what's going to make you happy. You know? If you just get granted, if Dana White just comes in and say, hey, Nas, you're champion, you're not going to feel happy as fighting for it, going through the ranks, building a record, and then having it, like, winning it.
Or they say, Nas, guess what? Nas is a belt-holding champion. I want what he's got without going through the contention, without going through the fights, without going through the ups and downs, without going through the challenges. But automatically, I feel like with young agents, I feel like, hey, I want what he's got. He's been around for a long time. Got a damaged back, damaged neck, damaged knees, damaged ankles. I've been through three combat deployments, and one helicopter crash. So when I was in the military, I want what that guy has. He's got a lot of rank, but they didn't see the blood and sweat that went into it. The ups and downs. And there are those ups and downs. And life is about working from the lowest ladder rung and working all the way to the top. You know, when you'll be producing the Tonight Show. You know, when you're on the center stage at MMA beating the shit out of the top UFC guy. That's what it's all about. It's the pursuit of that happiness that's guaranteed to achieve a more perfect union. And that's endgame. And when we forget that, I ask my friends to please read the Constitution. There's 7 articles. The first 3 are the most important. Article 1 being Congress and the legislature and how laws are made. That's the big issue, is how laws are made. Article 2 is the president. The president doesn't have much to do. He's the president. But Article 3 is about the deciders of what constitutional laws the legislature and the president make are constitutional. They judge the supreme law of the land. They rule on those laws. So if the laws are legal and the judicial system says, hey, they're legal, you can't do anything about it, the guy can flip a cop off. As long as he's not violating fraud, misrepresentation, fighting words, or lawless behavior, then, or imminent lawless behavior, which is violence, then he can do it. I can burn a flag. I can burn a Russian flag, an American flag, a Spanish flag, a Cuban flag. I can burn any flag I want. And that's free speech.
But that mentality, that builds weak character. Being able to do almost virtually anything you want, but at the same time, there's so many laws and you can't do anything you want. It's a weird balance, but that part of being able to do whatever you want, burn any flag, you shouldn't be able to flip off a president. Shouldn't be able to flip off a police officer. Shouldn't be able to burn any flag you want, most certainly. And that builds weak character, and that's why happiness, people try to find it and try to leave it to somebody else to make them happy, like the president, the election, the police, the government.
Project all the problems on everybody else.
Yeah, project it. But happiness is within. I choose to not vote. That makes me happy. I choose to stay. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. I'm not saying that what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not saying that what I'm doing is right. But I'm just simply saying that I choose to be happy. I choose to just chase my dreams. I'm gonna have to work regardless. No matter who the president is, I'm gonna have to wake up the next morning and go to work. So the president isn't really gonna change my wage by much. Taxes maybe by a little adjustments, but at the end of the day, I'm still gonna have to get up and work.
You hold your own destiny. You both hold your own destiny.
And a lot of people, they like to limit themselves because of the government. They say, oh, I can't make it because the government is holding me down. But everyone, there's a story out there for everyone who's made it from nothing, and they've made it. Like, none of us have gotten.
That's the champion mindset.
A road there. We've all had to fight for everything.
Brother, you are preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
That's an
I'm
important
sure
point to make.
too. Like, I don't know your story, but I'm sure it wasn't just all handed to you.
My mom died when I was 7 years old on Thanksgiving Day, November 27th. And, you know, my dad was a hard-working, New York City cop. He did the best he could with me, and I found my way into the military. And the only thing that did was save my life. And that was my road. And your road is your road. And the listener's road is their road. But I got to tell you, the hardest road is the honorable road, the moral road, and the right way. The golden rule: you treat me how you would want to be treated.
In the end, it's the biggest reward. It's the hardest path to go through, and it doesn't have its benefits or rewards in the path. But when you're at the top, it has the biggest rewards possible.
Absolutely.
That path that we're talking about.
Great talk.
Yeah.
You wanna?
I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah,
it
we
was
should
a
wrap
great
it up, 'cause
conversation, but it's like
Great time,
And
guys.
the thing is, we can keep going about this, but
That's
do
just
have
it.
to limit
And
ourselves.
I'm sure we'll continue again.
Yeah,
Something will happen on
a
Channel
pleasure.
6 tonight, and we'll talk
It was a
about
pleasure.
it. It was a pleasure for me too. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Vanguard Show. See you next time.
Take care, guys.